There are two passages of Scripture, again from the book of Jeremiah, that we have to take into consideration, because not only does Jeremiah quote God saying, you've abandoned those paths, those ancient paths of goodness, but then he points out some of the things that they have done. And in Jeremiah 7, verses 5 through 7, it says, "For if you truly amend your ways and your deeds, and if you truly practice justice between a man and his neighbor, if you do not oppress the alien, the orphan, or the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, nor walk after other gods to your own ruin, then I will let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever." And then near the end of the book, in chapter 22, he goes back again and says, "Thus says the Lord, do justice and righteousness, and deliver the one who has been robbed from the power of his oppressor. And also do not mistreat or do violence to the stranger, the orphan, or the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place." Every part of Jesus' teaching incorporates the idea of putting feet and hands to your faith. Now, it includes people in every kind of need. And if you were to take that passage in Deuteronomy that I just read, you would see actually 7 different things that are there, and I'm just going to touch on them very quickly. The reason you have the study guide is not so you can follow along with me as I go through it, but for you to go home and study on your own, because there's no way possible that I'm going to cover all of this. But I do want to make mention of some of these 7 things that Moses spoke to the children of Israel. Number 1, as Christians in this crazy, confusing world, the first thing we need to do is to maintain a soft heart. He says, you should not harden your heart. I don't know how you are, but so many times, if I drive by someone who is homeless, or if I drive by a veteran, or if I drive by someone who's begging on the street, it's easy for me to say, well, that's just a panhandler. I don't need to do anything about it. And many times we're suspicious because we know that there are people who are taking advantage. When Joanne and I had taken one of our teams over to Bosnia, to Sarajevo, many years ago, we went into a certain quarter, a certain section of the city, and there were panhandlers and people begging, and there was even mothers who would literally deform their children, would cut their lip or gouge out the eye or do anything like that in order to get sympathy and money from people. And I read an article in the newspaper while I was there that said that one of the number 1 panhandlers in the entire city of Sarajevo made over $350,000 a year and was driving a Mercedes-Benz. And he did it by begging. So it's easy for us to become hard-hearted when we see people who are in need, and we can't let that happen. I love what my dad said as a pastor. He said, I'd rather give to a guy that doesn't need it than to not give to a guy who really does. And he said, I'll leave that decision up to God. I'll just give. And that's the kind of spirit that we should have. He also tells us don't be stingy. He says, don't close your hand. Just don't hang on to what you have as if it really belongs to you. There's a difference between ownership and possession. You and I as Christians own nothing, though we may possess a lot. But what we possess, we are responsible to use wisely and to use in a way that not only meets our needs and blesses us, but also blesses other people. And this goes to the third thing that Joshua said, or Moses said, and that is to commit yourself to sufficient generosity. He said, God, you should freely open your hand and you should generously give, verses 8 and 10. And then don't begrudge the privilege of helping. He says, your heart shouldn't be grieved. You shouldn't have this attitude, well, I got to do this to look good. If I don't do it, people are going to think I'm a horrible person, so I got to do it, but I really don't want to. It can't be that way. You have to be, your open heart has to be softened by the Holy Spirit so that your open heart is seen in evidence of your open hand to where you're able to give. And then recognize who the poor really are. Now this is an interesting word, because when you and I think of the word poor, we think of it primarily as being somebody who's short on money, doesn't have any money. But the word poor there, as you'll see when you get home, it's talking about a person who has a sense of want or a sense of need. In other words, the bottom line is this: any person who has a serious need, a specific need. And as you will hear in just a moment, the ministry that Maggie has, and it's not classified as a Christian ministry, but it certainly operates on the principles that Christ taught us. But how this all came about is an amazing story, so I'm anxious for you to hear her. And then the last thing I would say is that there will always be a need. You know, you've heard the phrase, the poor will always be here. There's never going to be a time when you will live on this earth but what there are people around who have special needs. And if there should be anybody in this world who ought to be loving and caring and generous, it ought to be those people who claim to be followers of Jesus Christ. In fact, in the men's Bible study, by the way, guys, we are meeting Thursday, and we are meeting Wednesday. The ladies' Bible study's over, okay? So I forgot to mention that earlier. But in the men's Bible study, we've been studying the book of 1 John. And John makes this probing indictment when he says, if you say that you love God and yet you hate your brother, you're a phony through and through. Now, that's my translation. But we need to understand that what we experience in our hearts must be manifested. Jesus talks about the cup of cold water. He talks about all of these different things. He says, as many as you did it to these, my brothers, those who are in prison, so forth and so on, you've done it to me. Why? Because Jesus Christ came to seek and save the lost. He came to heal the brokenhearted. He came to bind up the wounded. He came to recover sight to the blind. In other words, Jesus came not only to touch our souls, but also to take care of us in our material and physical needs. When you give your tithes and offerings here at Greer Chapel, those tithes and offerings go directly to the Desert Pines Baptist Association Resort Ministry, which involves 5 chapels like ours. All of that money is put together, and at the end of the year, when all of the expenses have been paid, those of us who lead these chapels get together, and we will do that next month or later this month, and we will decide how we need to use the money that's left. Because every year there will be thousands of dollars left over that has been unspent. And we hold back just enough money for startup costs next season, and all of the rest of the money is given away. We give to the Crisis Pregnancy Center. We do the baby bottle campaign. We do the backpack food program for homeless children. A couple of years ago, we gave away to all of the law enforcement people in the entire county. We gave gift cards to Subway. There are ways that we as chapels want the communities to know that we are not selfish, that we genuinely care about the people. And one of those ministries that we have been privileged to share with in various different ways is the Walking Down Ranch Veterans Village that's in Lakeside. And it's such a privilege this morning for us to have Margaret Heath, who is the founder and the executive director of that. And so, Margaret, if you would please, just like you to come and share your story with us for a little bit. And welcome her as she comes.
I don't usually need a mic. I have a big mouth. People hear me all over. A lot of you I've never met before, and I'll give you a little background. I started with a friend of mine and her husband We started the Walking Down Ranch in 2012. We were all involved in American Legion, VFW, and all these different things, and we did not see anything being done to assist our veterans. And I know if you're familiar with assistance cards, you know the only thing you can buy on that card is food. If you have a broken headlight and get a ticket, you can't afford the headlight, you can't afford to pay the ticket, you can't afford to fix it. And insurance and propane and all these other needs that we think of in our daily life that are necessities were not available to the veterans. Dog food, hygiene, paper goods, anything like that, you cannot buy if you're on assistance. So we started setting up this little table in front of the food bank, and we were giving out bundles of paper towels, toilet paper, food, coats, boots, everything. People just started responding and bringing us so much stuff to give to the veterans that were in need. And we're a veteran-founded organization in Arizona, 501c3 nonprofit. But if somebody comes to me and they need help, they get it. And we have been so blessed. We started with nothing. And we were offered a property in Lakeside, which was the old Rainbow Lodge, and some of you years ago may have stayed there. But it had been given to the East Mesa Firefighter Charities, and they were driving up from Mesa every time it was vandalized or something had to be fixed. And they called me one day and they said, would you come look at this property? Because we had been looking for property to build. So I went over there with my board, and the weeds were up to almost my shoulders. There were 18 cabins that were completely vandalized. It was a really nice resort in the summer, but the kids had gone in there and they had just destroyed everything. Windows, doors, cupboards, furniture, appliances, everything. And so I'm walking this 3.66 acre property with weeds up to here and looking at all this damage, and I'm thinking, oh God, this is wonderful. Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And my board is looking at me like, you know, you're just plain crazy. You can't do anything with this. And I'm saying, you're wrong. God has given us this opportunity. So one of my board members said, Maggie, if you want to do this, I'm here with you. And the rest of them are just like shaking their head. But it's perfect. We're near the hospital. We're near the VA. We're near shopping. We're on a bus route. They can go to the library. They can go wherever they need to go, where we're located right on the main drag in Lakeside. And so we started trimming trees, cutting weeds, and we started with one cabin at a time, went in there and emptied it, refurbished it, and housed our first veteran. And that was in January of 2018. We have since assisted 178 veterans that have come to us and moved on from homelessness to a secure, safe, stable life. And it doesn't necessarily mean they went into their own house, they bought a house, whatever. They go into apartments, they go in, we've had 3 that had to go into rehab. But that's progress. When they admit that's what they've got to do, that's progress, that's good. So we have assisted over 1,700 veterans and family members. And I don't know how many other community members that came to us in need that were not veterans, and we assist everybody we possibly can. We have 18 cabins, and all but one right now is full. We have 20 men. I have 5 women and 4 children living on this property. Yesterday, I was telling Pastor Bob that I went down there yesterday for a quick in and out, and I have a man sleeping on the floor in my laundry room, a veteran. And he said, you were gone, you weren't here. And the man is broken, just broken. And it's like, Okay, come with me. So I had one cabin that is our paraplegic cabin, and he is in there now. And we loaded the cabin with food. We got him fresh linens. We got him set up so he can compress. He can get back a little bit of his sanity. He's like really upset, and he just needs help. So we'll get him help. And I told him, I said, well, you picked the right floor to sleep on, because now we can help you. And we will. And we've had so many veterans come to us, no family. The family, a lot of times when they came back from Vietnam, they were on drugs. They had mental issues. They had physical issues. I mean, Agent Orange and all these other different things that are going on right now in society that they are finally admitting is a problem. Blue water issues. And so people have to understand that all of these things need to be treated, helped, help them to heal. And so that's what we're trying to do. We have a good relationship with the VA, but the VA is lax. We just cannot get services for these people that we need to get. And a lot of times it falls back on us. There's no dental. You can't survive if you can't eat. And you can't eat if you've got infections and issues all the time with your teeth. So this is one of the things that we need to get worked on. But most of the veterans that are there, and it could be 30 days, 90 days, I've had a veteran there over 3.5 years. And it's a transitional housing. But it depends how long and what your issues are to be from the beginning of your transition period to your end of your transition period when you can take care of yourself. Some people will never get to that point. I had a veteran that moved in. He was with me 2.5 years. His name's Dan, same as my husband. But he had no family. And he had so many medical issues. I'd go to Tucson and stay with him 2 or 3 days, bring him home, bring him back. There was nothing they could do for him. And I'm a real stringent person when it comes to our rules. And one of my rules was, if you come and you have a pet, you can keep your pet. But until you can take care of yourself, you cannot get a pet. So I'm really well known for breaking my own rules. So we have a humongous Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, Labor Day, whatever, for these people. And Christmas Eve, we're running around saying, okay, check your list. We got 30 people. We got to have everything they want on their list, because I spoil these guys rotten, and women. And so we were checking our list. And it was like, Dan had sweatshirts, he had socks, he had different things. He wanted a turquoise cross necklace. The only thing that man wanted was a dog. And I tell my dog story everywhere, and then everybody bawls, and I have to go home. So I'm just going to tell you that Christmas Eve, you do not want to be running around anywhere on this mountain looking for a dog. It is like crazy. Everything closes up. There's nothing here. And I had been everywhere I possibly could to find a dog. So somebody said, well, go over there behind Sholo Ford, there's a kennel. So I'm driving over to Sholo Ford, and the lady said, well, we're not open, I'm just here to feed. I said, I don't care what you're doing, but I'm not leaving here without a dog. And so she said, well, you can come in and look. So I'm walking around, and they've got all these little yippers and all these other dogs running around there barking and whatever. Well, Dan was a big man. And I thought, that's not going to work. Over in the corner, there's this great big Australian Kahula, whatever they are, 100-and-something pound dog. And so I said, okay, I want that dog. And she says, you don't want that dog. That dog's been abused. He was hit by a car. He's got health issues. She said, you don't want that dog. I said, I'm taking that dog. So I left with the dog. And The dog had been adopted by a veterinarian, and all his fees and everything were paid, so again, God was looking out for me. And I put this dog in my car, and his name now is Amigo, because Witzel Fritz didn't fit. And so I've got this dog sitting in the front seat of my car, like, he owns my car, just. So I go back to the village, and I'm in the middle of cooking Christmas dinner for 70 people. And I said, Dan, can you take care of my dog? I said, I can't have it in the kitchen when I'm cooking, and I need somebody to watch my dog. But I had to make sure they were going to bond. So he took my dog to his cabin, came back up at 1 o'clock for dinner, and he says, I suppose you want your dog back. And I said, it'd be really nice if I had my dog back. So he comes in and sits down on the couch, and the dog jumps up on the couch, lays on his lap, and they never separated. And he passed a year and a half later, and the dog is at my house, bossing my dachshunds around. But they both have wonderful homes now. And I mean, we have so many that touch my heart more than others. And it's like, you want an open heart for everybody, but there are just some people that have had such hardships, and that dog had had such hardships, they were just a matched pair. And so I can tell you story after story with 178 people that have come and gone in my life. And every one of them is a blessing to me, because I have learned from each and every one of them. And the Veterans Village in Lakeside, like I said, it's 3.66 acres. We have 18 cabins. We have a free laundry room. It used to be a house where the owners that owned the resort lived, and then a separate building where they had all kinds of businesses go in and out of there and everything. And now we have, in 3 years and 10 months, because of the generosity of people on this mountain and everywhere, we paid this structure off, this property off, $575,000 in 3 years and 10 months. And I mean, it was a lot of hard work. My Sundays here are events, and a lot of private donations. We don't have grants. We have no grants for this. We have one grant which provides food for about 6 months out of the year for our people that live there. So it's a lot of work. And we have so many jobs that need to be done on the property. We don't have the young, vital people that can come in there and trim trees and haul stuff to the dump or go on Wednesday to do pickups and stuff. We just don't have a lot of that energy and ability, so we get a little bit behind, when it comes to cleaning the property and stuff like that. So anyone who wants to volunteer and come pick up, bedroom sets, dressers, whatever on a Wednesday, we would really love to have your help. Because I have 2 women right now going out doing pickups, and they're about broken. But the property's paid off, and so what we did, because I just don't know how not to step in these black holes, we turned the old thrift store that was paying all of our bills into a veteran outreach center. And so we have new computers in there, and the veterans can go in and they can research jobs, they can research apartments, we can get their DD2, we can get their medical records, we can set up their appointments, we can do whatever we need to do to help them. We give out food boxes every day, and we have 3 meals a week where they can come in and have breakfast one day, lunch, or dinner. We have AA meetings, we have NA meetings, we have a church group in there on Tuesday nights. So we try to offer them a variety of things to do and help them to get their social life adjusted, as well as their private life with their housing and their needs. So when they move in on my property, they have a paper that they think they're going to re-enlist in the military. My application is like 27 pages, but when they're done, I know what sock size they take. So it's like I can adjust my Christmas list. But it's all working. It's working. Because when you get someone like the gentleman I found yesterday sleeping on my laundry room floor, and today he's got a full stomach, he's got a safe place to sleep, he's warm, and he'll mature from here and get situated. But this is the kind of people that we all need to help. And our veterans deserve to go to bed in a safe place with a full stomach on a clean set of sheets. And I just cannot believe there's so many veterans out there and people out there that need this assistance. And it's not necessarily because of something they've done wrong. It's not because of something that has been above and beyond what they could scope. They just don't see this coming. And a lot of people are one payday from being out on the street. And we don't realize that. In this economy, and it's like they might have been fine renting a house for 5 years. All of a sudden the landlord says, hey, you got to get out, we're selling this house. And they got 30 days to move. They don't have the money. They don't have a place to go. Rent up on this mountain is atrocious. And if you're just getting Social Security or VA benefits, you can't save up 3 months rent and utility deposits and everything else for you to move in 30 days. It doesn't work that way. If you've lost your ID, if you don't have any income, you can't get Medicare or payments on your, if you don't have an address. If you're homeless, you can't even collect your Medicare benefits. So there's a lot of red tape that has to be jump over those hurdles to try to get some of this stuff done, to get medical treatment, to get surgery, to get a lot of stuff done. It's a process. And COVID just wiped us out because you couldn't go into DES, you couldn't go into the VA, you couldn't go into some of these places to get this stuff done that you needed to do. So now that that's a little bit better, we can. We don't have to wait for a veteran to wait 6 months for an appointment to see a doctor, 6 months for surgery, and that sort of thing anymore. So hopefully things will start turning around for some of this. But, we're doing everything we can. I know you people do everything you can. And just see if we can get some of these veterans the care that they deserve, that they've earned, and go from there. So, I don't know if you've got any questions or whatever, but.
Is the name of the ministry or the 501c3 Walking Down Ranch, or is it them?
It's Walking Down Ranch.
And the other question, I know last week you described where it was, but I didn't figure out a picture in my mind.
Well, we're in Lakeside, and I don't know how familiar you are, but if you're going from here to Show Low or down, we're actually just this side of Blue Ridge High School.
Just this side of what?
Blue Ridge High School.
Oh, okay.
And there's a Circle K, and Mr. Raleigh rents us that lot there for parking for $1 a year. And then we have our new VOC center. And then we have my office, the old house. And then we like I said, I stepped in it again because once I paid off the village, we bought the old pawn shop that was next door. And that's our new thrift store. And that's what we have to pay our bills. Buy the food, supply clothing or medicine or whatever we need for the veterans. That's our sole income, other than donations. And so we paid the village off, and we locked it down with our attorney, and as well as the new thrift store. So it will never be anything other than a veterans facility for the White Mountain veterans. So nobody can go in there and sell it. Nobody can go in there and say, well, you've got all this land now and it's worth a lot of money, so we're gonna sell it and we're gonna make some profit. It can't be done. It will always be there for our White Mountain veterans. So
Do the veterans work in the thrift store?
they work everywhere. They get charged nothing. Their food, their clothing, their transportation, there is never a charge to any veteran that lives there. But they are required to work 20 hours a week on property. And, you know, I've got a lot of these little quirky sayings, and one of them is everybody can do something. And, you know, they can sit at the computer and they can look up stuff that we need to find a price for the thrift store. They can sit behind the register. They can teach somebody how to use a computer. They can cook breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But everybody can do something. And I just think that, you know, they come in my office and they'll sit down and they'll say, well, I don't know if you want me here, going back to what you're saying, because, you know, I've done some things in my past, and it's like, we all have a past. And I have a sign on my wall that says every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. And I live by that. I mean, it's like, you don't apologize to me. You know, I do background checks because I have to be careful with 5 children on the property who I have there. You know, and it's like, we do everything that we can to keep people safe and to provide everything that they need. And so once they're on the property, they are required to work 20 hours a week. And I don't care if they're out there raking apples or picking up cigarette butts or pulling weeds, something, you know. They work at the thrift store, they can be trained on we have a brand new, really nice POS system, and they can be trained to go somewhere else and work a register and do different things. We have some of them that want to set up their own maintenance or handyman business. And so we have people coming in to teach them how to start their own business with BSA. We have realtors that are coming in and they'll say, okay, if you want to buy a house with your VA loan, this is what your credit is, this is what you've got to do, and we try to walk them through a lot of different processes for a lot of different things to help them to fulfill their dreams, as well as to get themselves financially and physically able to sustain their own well-being. So we need help. We need volunteers all the time. We have this huge event at the airport that is going to be our big event this year. And so if you have a plane, we'd love to see you there. And it's been a struggle trying to get some of this stuff done. But we need people to just be there in body to sell water, Pepsi, walk people around, help them find what they need. We got memorial tributes and stuff that we're doing. So I'd really like to see you all there. It's a free entry. The kids can get a free plane ride. So they'll enjoy that. So.
One last question. Is there some type of document that basically tells the story you've been telling today, or should we want to give it to somebody that might be interested in covering?
I do. I have a 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22 success story that I do every year. And we're trying to change our website right now, so hopefully all that stuff will be on the new web. And but I have a sign-up sheet up there too, if you'd like to receive our newsletter. And would be happy to get you out the newsletter every month so you can see some of our progress and what we're doing. So.
Is that online newsletter?
It will be, yep,
Okay.
it will be.
And that's back here?
Uh-huh. So, and the newsletter does go out, whether it's on the website or not, we will email it to you. So, I really appreciate you all letting me come and talk your ear off, and if you have any questions, just, I'll hang around for a bit. So, thank you.
Wow. I thought I knew a little bit about it. until she started sharing the story. Isn't that amazing? But it shows what people can do if they get over themselves and start looking around at the other people around them that are in need. And I love that statement you just made. I'll have to put that on my screen or something on my computer. Every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. I love that. And it's true, isn't it? She never talks about this, and I won't talk about it except just to mention that Maggie does have some health issues that are not good. And so I hope that you'll pray for her. She has I don't know how many years she's been dealing with it, but it has an ultimate end to it that, would take her life. And so one of her concerns is also not only to minister to the veterans, but also to raise people up that can carry that project on, And so, but there are things that you can do now, just from the 5 chapels that are a part of this ministry. There are at least 2 of the chapels that have actually gone in and have helped renovate some of these cabins. And what she didn't tell you also is that when a veteran leaves, sort of graduates and gets out on their own to be able to have their own apartment or something like that, they get to take all the furniture with them except for the stove and refrigerator. So they have, everything. So whenever somebody leaves, they've got to refurnish that cabin. The cabins are old, and so there's things like chinking the walls and fixing cabinets and repairing pieces of furniture. And so my encouragement to you, if you're here just for the summer and you have a place you need to send stuff when you get ready to leave, consider taking it down to the thrift village, the thrift store at Walking Down Ranch. If you have pieces of furniture and computers or whatever the case may be, because they'll either be able to use it in the cabins or in the office, or they'll be able to use it to generate income by putting it in the thrift store for somebody to buy. And so she's going to be around for a while, and so I hope that you will take advantage of talking with her, and I hope they're also in the back, there are 2 little offering containers there. One is that an apple? Oh, it's a gourd. Okay. Well, I meant shape of it, but that's a real gourd then. All right. She has a special thing for somebody that passed away recently. Is that right? Or some?
One of our founders. We lost Al Abenente, who was my friend's husband that helped us found this.
And so if you would like to help out financially with maybe helping develop a memorial for him, you can use the gourd. Make your checks out to Walking Down Ranch. If you would like to just give this morning for the general work, there's a basket back there that you can put some money in. So I'll leave that up to you. But if you've been blessed and encouraged, I hope that you will at least put Walking Down Ranch on your daily prayer list, because they're doing an incredible, incredible thing. Now, I want to just finish up with just a few final thoughts. We need to, well, I've listed 10 things that you can look at in the study guide later, but I'll just mention some of them. Number 1, you have to keep in mind that God is the owner of it all. We may possess much or little, but we own nothing as followers of Christ, and we need to understand that. We are stewards. We're not owners, we're house distributors. We are responsible for not only what we give to church, but we're also responsible for how we use the rest of our money, what we buy, who we do business with, so forth and so on. And generosity needs to be a part of that. And the interesting thing about it is that our stewardship, the way that we use the resources that God gives us, is actually a reflection on our faith, because we usually give on the basis of our trust and our faith in an organization, our faith in a person, but particularly our faith in God. Because as we give, all of a sudden we realize that somewhere along the line I need to be able to have something come back, and so we trust God for that. I've heard this phrase, and I've heard preachers preach on it, the area of giving, where he uses this term, well, we give in order to get. Well, that's true, but we don't give just to get. We give in order to get so we can give. So it's an ongoing thing, where we use the resources that God has given us to bless other people. It also, our stewardship reflects how generous we are as well, how tight-fisted we are. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. It also reflects our values, what's important to us. I mean, you take a person that's got 7 TVs in a 5-room house, you know where his values are. You understand what I'm saying? And so the way we use our money determines what's important and what our values are. And then also it reflects our prejudices, because if we look at a guy and because of his age or his condition or his skin color or whether or not he's shaved, and we judge our approval or disapproval of him based on that, then it shows us that we have some prejudice in our hearts that we should never have. I oftentimes wonder, I was raised in a pastor's home, but I was a rotten little kid sometimes. And I think, what if God had given me what I deserved? And then I try to quit thinking about that just right away, But meeting the needs of others, and this is the last point that I see there, meeting the needs of others is the ultimate practical expression of our love for and our obedience to Christ. You remember what Jesus told his disciples? He said, greater love has no man than this, that he would lay down his life for his friends. And he said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And one of the commandments he's given us is to be people who are generous, who are without prejudice, who have hearts that are open to everyone. And we have veterans here in this room this morning that have paid incredible prices at times. And the ministry that God has given Maggie is extraordinary. And so it's my hope and prayer that you will find ways to walk the ancient path, the ancient pathway of generous compassion, or to say it another way, of compassionate generosity, one way or the other. So be sure you take time to look at some of the material, pick up some of the material that Maggie has back there. Ask her any questions you have. And if you would be interested in volunteering in some way, I know we're near the end of the season, and one of the things that I have on my agenda is that next year, somehow or other, Greer Chapel is going to try to be directly involved in some way with you, Maggie, and because we already have 2 chapels that have done enormous amount of work in buying furniture and in delivering stuff and in fixing up those cabins and repairing things, and I think there are some people here in our chapel who would like to be a part of that next year. Well, let's have a word of prayer, and then we're going to conclude the service. Diane's going to come and lead us in another song, and then Judge Tilburg will come and lead us in our benediction. Father, I just thank you so much for the opportunity you've given us this morning to take a look at what it really looks like to be a compassionate, caring person. And if anybody in this world ought to be that kind of person, it's the person who claims to be a follower of Jesus Christ. When you look at the 3 years of his public ministry, you realize that his whole ministry focused on compassionately caring for people and teaching the gospel and telling people how they could know God. And it's not one or the other, it's both and. That's the message of the gospel. And so I pray that you'll make us alert to that and sensitive to that. We thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen.